remember your project called Home, and I was just wondering, how did you manage to do all this to make this project happen when you had to come up with the repertoire, when you had to have rehearsals, but you couldn't have rehearsals. So how did you manage?
Yeah, well, it was a big challenge. You know, when I started to do the series, everything had to go so fast. We decided in 24 hours actually to make it happen. But there were many difficulties because we had a lockdown. And so just things like to find a piano. I didn't have a piano in my home. So we had to find a piano and get it transported during lockdown. And the only piano we could find was a Yamaha, which was tuned to 440. So it was a slightly lower pitch than most pianos, but it didn't matter, we had to take it. And so we made decisions, I guess like the festival is now making decisions. In the second, you have to decide. And it was like a snowball that started very slow and became faster and bigger and grew to this huge production now, 70 episodes and 8 million streams. We never imagined at the beginning that something like this would happen. I just wanted to make music for my family at home and for some friends out there. And I never realized how many friends actually behind the camera are there listening.
So it was all starting during the quarantine, during the lockdown, and it was quite an idea to do, because weren't you afraid of such a close contact with other people? Like your wife, didn't she say, Daniel, I mean, all those strange people in our home, we have kids.
Yeah, it's a very good question. We are lucky we have a house, and the where we filmed was on the ground floor in the house, which was completely separate. So there were separate entrances, and the crew that came to film, they always came in on the one side and left the other side. So they had no contact to where we lived. We lived above. But of course, after the second or third episode, my son says, Papa, I want to come and listen. I want to be there, you know. So, of course, it was a challenge to have, you know, people coming in and out. It was the same crew. We had always the same people. They were all tested before we started. And we lived in a kind of a bubble, like a cocoon, for almost a month. We would meet a few minutes before the show, we would do the show, and we'd leave again. So we took several precautions. We put some of the team also in the basement for the sound. And we, you know, disinfected everything every day. I spent all day, the minute they left, every door was disinfected. You know, we went through this whole thing. But yes, we were very, very lucky that nobody got sick, nobody got infected, and I'm very grateful to my wife and to my family for allowing this to happen. But they, at the same time, they also enjoyed it. You know, that became like a routine, and we lost routine completely. And this gave everyone a kind of a routine, except one time where my son was hungry, and at the end of the show, he shouts, "Papa, I'm hungry." You know, because that was real life.
But speaking of family, as we have mentioned, your family, your dear family. So your wife, tell us a few things about her, what she's like, what she loves, what she does in her life, and also your kids. How old are they? And do you dream for them to become musicians as well, or do you want a normal childhood?
Normal is good. I like that. So my wife is a wonderful, beautiful lady, and very strong, very calm, but also very strong at the same time. And she's a very talented painter. She draws and paints, but mostly drawing. And she's an amazing. She has a real gift of what they call this hyper-realistic. So when she draws with pencil, and it becomes like a photograph almost. So she has the ability just to, from nothing, just to create something on a piece of paper which is an amazing thing to watch, to be around and see that. And she's, we say, she's my rock. She's this kind of the strength in our family, because she has, she's at home, she's with the children, and she takes care of them, and she does it in a fantastic way. And I have two beautiful boys, 6 years old and 2 years old. And they are, I mean, my family is the central focus and the sunshine in my life. And if they're to be musicians, I want them to be happy. So whatever makes them happy, I'm happy for them to do. I think, to be a musician is a difficult choice nowadays. It was always difficult, but particularly now it's difficult. But I love them to be in contact with music, at least to hear it, to dance to it. And my older son, 6, his big passion is theatre. He loves theatre. And before the lockdown, we were always going to the theatre together, and he's always looking at the productions and analysing the lighting and the colours, and he's got something very special. Theatre is his thing, so I could imagine maybe that he would go in this direction.
But also last year, Mishimaisky, he came with his whole family, with all his kids, even
Yeah.
the smallest ones.
Yeah.
So next year, will we have a chance to meet your beautiful, wonderful, amazing wife and your fascinating kids?
I hope so. I hope so very much. I would love them to come here. The smallest child is still a little bit small. I want him to really, take it in, and to be able to be conscious of where we are. So maybe 1-2 years, maybe. But I tell my family all the time about Odessa. They see the photographs, and they know how much I love this place. So I'm sure they will come one day, I'm sure.
You're very artistic in your performance. Immediately, everyone in the audience can feel how you feel the music and what you feel through what you're playing and through what you're performing. But if we pause for complimenting you, there's also this feeling that you're not a very emotional person, but a very kind and caring person. And the question is, who of your parents or of your ancestors do we have to thank for such an amazing personality?
For personality.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly both my parents. I mean, my father and mother for sure are absolutely amazing people. Very different people, completely different. But they raised us, me and my brother, in a beautiful, very open way, and they encouraged us to have an opinion, to believe in things, and to try and be a good person. I guess that's was one of the greatest lessons that we learned from them. My mother is very organized and brilliantly structured. My father is not very well organized, but wonderfully creative. And so, I guess I'm a mixture of them. But also going back, my grandmother, on my mother's side, I was very close to her. And I've spent a lot of time researching my family history, and it goes back a long way. It's a big mixture. We have, on the one side, on my mother's side, we have very strong Jewish heritage. On my father's side, we have the Irish Catholics. So we have this real melting pot of emotions and of personalities and of guilt that goes along with those whole things. So I guess I'm a real big mix. The soup, everything has gone into this soup for generations, and many religions, many ideas, much conflict also, much tragedy in the family, but great happiness too. So like many families, I think we're a combination of many different things.
Starting with the fact that you're very artistic on stage, I have a question from my daughter, who's a young starting musician. She plays piano, and she's graduating from the secondary school. Right now it's the Larsky School. And so what she's asking is, what do you think about when you perform? Is it only emotions? Are you concentrated on the piece? Do you try to make the audience feel some emotion, some idea, to pass the idea to the other? Like, what's in your head when you perform?
That's a
While performing is what I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's not an easy question to answer because it's often very different. It depends upon the circumstances, where you are, what you're playing, who you're playing with. But in general, I would say I'm absolutely inside the piece. I'm inside the music. I'm deep inside it, and the second you're on stage, your goal is to share the thoughts of what this composer has written. That's the idea, is to share it. And the minute you start to play, you realize that you're not alone, but it's a dialogue with the audience. And so you react. And so that also changes the way that you might play a phrase, or the energy in the room is very important, I think. And if you play like a concert with my friends, where they start coming on with drums and dancing around and the audience is laughing, and that's of course a very different emotion to when you go out and you play a Beethoven sonata, where you're completely focused, like a razor line, a sharp line. So it's really different, I think. But I would say certainly for the last 10 or 15 years, the minute that I start to play, I feel very, very well. I just feel happy. And that took a long time to get there. You know, I always love to play, but of course sometimes you're nervous, sometimes things happen. But I would say probably especially since being a father, I guess, I just noticed that I have more calmness on the stage. And that's wonderful, because it gives you the chance to also digest what you're playing, because the music is very emotional, very beautiful, and the stories are sometimes very powerful. And so it all goes into this idea of communicating on the stage.
So your project Hope at Home, it brought a lot of joy, a lot of support, and it even saved millions of people around the world. But what did it bring to you as a person, as a musician, as a performer?
It brought many different things to me. The first thing that it gave was the feeling that it's okay to keep going. Because, of course, there was the other possibility was to say, okay, we stop and we just pull out the plug and we stay home and we just sit, we do nothing. And I tried that for about 10 days, and then I realized that wasn't going to work. And I was on the internet, and I was listening to many friends and colleagues who were playing concerts with their cell phone in their bathrooms and in their kitchens. And I was listening and watching, and that first feeling was a wonderful feeling. It was like everybody was hugging each other around the world. But then when I was watching more of the streams, I realized that what started to bother me was the sound, because the sound was never really top quality. It was a cell phone. And with classical music, it's about listening. It's about the sound. And so that's when I started to think, is it possible to make a stream that sounds like you're in a concert hall? And the television company, Arte, which is a fantastic broadcaster, they wanted the pictures. They wanted the visual. But I wanted the sound. So I said to them, I would only do it if I can guarantee the sound is absolutely top quality. And they said, we don't know how to do that. You know, we can give you good sound, but it won't be what you're looking for. So I said, I know somebody that can make that sound. I'm going to ask him to come to my house and tell me with his microphones, can he make the sound happen? And he came and he said, yeah, I think we can do it. And then I said, okay, let's do this. And the other thing that I decided, for me, it was not a television show. It was a house concert. it was like the idea of, in the 19th century, in rooms like this, where you would have people come and you would play chamber music for a small gathering. And that's a kind of concert which I love and is almost forgotten now. It's almost died out. And so I wanted to try and recreate the idea of the salon, the musical salon, where people come, they play, they read, they are creative. But the difference is we have the camera and we have millions of people, but we're still in this very intimate space in the place where I live. So what it did, to answer your question, what it did was to focus my mind about how we share music now. And I would say for me, it was almost like a revolution. And until then, I would travel around the world and I would play my concerts and I would use the internet to communicate with my family, with FaceTime and everything. And here, exactly the opposite came. I went downstairs in my house, I spent the whole time with my family and I used the internet to connect with the audience. So within a few days, my entire axis had totally changed.
During your concerts, you don't only perform as an artist, as a musician, but you also do this whole lecturer part. Why did you decide to do that?
You know, in England, where I grew up, it was in the 1980s, it was very normal to talk to the audience. I think we picked it up from America, probably from Leonard Bernstein, from this idea of communication. And I often went to concerts as a child where there was a lot of explanation. The BBC had a series that would explain music, and I just always loved going there and learning more about the situation. That's not against a concert where it's just a concert. That's absolutely wonderful, but there was something that I found very inspiring about the combination. And so I started already when I was about 19, 20 to talk to audiences. And I've been doing it now for 25 years and I enjoy it. I just enjoy it. And I think the Hope at Home was an extension actually of what I've been doing. It just, the format was new. But it's the same thing I've been doing really for 25 years.
So, you seem like a musician that has nothing that you cannot master. So like you can master any type of music, any kind of piece, everything, but it feels like Baroque music is something very dear to your heart, and the way you perform it is very exceptional. Why?
I mean, I think that the Baroque music that we played in that concert is a very particular kind of music. It's dancing, it's love songs, it's drinking songs, it's emotion, it's about human beings actually. And you know, I think the danger with us musicians and everyone in general is we see Johann Sebastian Bach, we see the Handel, we see these giants with their wigs on and very elegant, and we're afraid to go close to them because they are so much higher than us. They are way up here and we are way down here. But when you start to read about them and you start to investigate them as people, you realize they were absolutely human. And the human element in Baroque music I find is particularly exciting because music was so important to the social structure of the Baroque times. Music meant everything. And you know, the word Baroque comes from the Spanish barroca. And a barroca means, it's a rough cut pearl. It's a rough cut. it's something that is not perfect. It's not pure. It's not clean. It's quite dangerous. It's quite, it's imperfect. And that I find is interesting because, again, we're used to seeing beautiful Baroque palaces and perfection. And there's something that is subversive, actually, about Baroque music, especially when you play with these guys, these dangerous guys, and they get the subversive side out of the music. And so I learned a lot from playing with them, but also from the way that this music affects people. Many people come, even here, and they said, we had no idea Baroque music can sound like this. They have a preconception about Baroque music. And we couldn't believe it. This was Baroque music. Wow. You know, you can get very excited about it. And the music was revolutionary at the time. It caused revolutions.
Very often they say that classical musician is happy, becomes happy when the performance is done. And that the jazzman is happy while the performance is happening. You obviously are happy while you're performing.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
the question is, which piece do you love to perform the most?
Ooh.
Which piece makes you be happy?
That's, I can't answer that question. You know, it's like which wine do you prefer on a certain day at a certain time, or which type of food, or sometimes you feel more like fish, sometimes you want pasta, sometimes you want champagne, sometimes you want whatever. We are blessed as musicians, especially as classical musicians. We have 500 years of music to choose from. That's amazing, you know. And there are thousands of of pieces that make me happy, thousands, for different reasons. So, you know, I could never choose one piece, but if you said to me, you're going to be put on a desert island and you can only take, let's say, 3-4 pieces with you. I mean, the Violin Concerto of Beethoven, any chamber music by Brahms, any. Schubert songs, and probably almost anything by Bach. But, you know, those are just 4, you know, random pieces. I mean, there's so much music out there, and I can be happy with a piece I'm playing for the first time that I don't know, that I've discovered, as a piece I've played 1,000 times. There's no way of knowing how music will make you feel.
So yesterday we heard this amazing piece that was written specifically for Odessa Classics and Beethoven House, and it was a real shock. It was something mesmerizing for the audience.
Silvestro.
Yes, and so just few words, few phrases about what it was for you, what it was.
He's a genius.
One genius.
Absolute genius.
Absolutely genius.
And you know, when Alexei Botvinov said to me, we have the chance to have a commission by Sylvester, I couldn't believe it, you know, because I thought, you know, that's like, he's one of the most original voices of our time. And I just love his music. And so then the idea came, okay, a combination with Beethoven, the Beethoven House, you know, my role as president of Beethoven. And then Maestro Silvestrov had the idea to take elements of the Pastoral. Was amazing, absolutely amazing. So, and then, of course, because the way he sees music is so distilled, we say. It's so original. But original, I mean that as a compliment. It's breathtaking. In one bar, in 2 bars, a whole cosmos can open. And there are not many composers that can do that. And so for me, it was a combination of many, many things. And to play it here, then, of course, on that stage, was amazing for us, really amazing. And there are many composers, especially today, that they write a lot pieces are long and complex, and there's not so much that's being said. And with Silvestrov, it's exactly the opposite. He writes very little, but every single note, every pause tells a huge story. Just the distance between one note and the next is like taking you on a legend, and that's really special. And that I've found with him, rehearsing is one thing to the piece, but to play, the performance, is a whole different cosmos, because the audience, they open themselves up to the piece, and we do too. And so you have to play that piece live. It has to be a performance. It really does.
So in this whole situation of the lockdown, Odessa is one of the only cities in the world that's running the festival, even in this shortened form, in this smaller form, but it's still happening. And weren't you afraid to come to Odessa? And was it some sort of a gesture to support your dear friend Alexei?
Yes, absolutely. Of course. I would not say I was scared, but of course I have concerns, and my family has concerns, because they would prefer me not to travel anywhere, and but the bond that I have with Alexei, with this festival, it's grown over these 4 years now. It was always special to me in my imagination because of what Odessa means for violin playing. But then coming here and playing and seeing the audiences and experiencing what music means to Odessa, then it became bigger. And now, the fact that Alexei and his team are really, I think, redefining what festivals are at the moment. Hardly any festivals are even operating. Many are trying, and I think any festival that tries we should support and be grateful to, because none of us know what's going to happen. But to have the size of audiences that we've had here, 700 people every night, that's more than any other festival that I've experienced since March. But everybody with masks, with distancing, obeying all the rules that we have, but showing people we can do it, we have to do it, I think is a very, very important signal. And I'm grateful to Alexei that he has done so much to make it happen. I know there have been many, many obstacles, as all of us have had in these last months. But Alexei does not give up. He's a fighter. And I don't give up either. So, that's one of the reasons I love him and I love coming here. There are not many festivals in the world where you can play a program of Schnittke and Silvestrov for 700 people, even with a pandemic or not pandemic. I mean, it was amazing to have so many people there listening. But then, as we went on stage to play the Grieg Sonata, and the announcer told the story that on this stage Sergei Rachmaninoff and Fritz Kreisler played, it reminded us again very quickly where we were and made me very nervous. It was the reason I was sweating a lot last night.
Thank you.
Thank you.